Ladies, let me tell you something. When it comes to relationships, there are some things you should just never do with a man. I don't care how much you love him, how good he looks, or how smooth he talks. Some mistakes will cost you your happiness, your peace, and even your self-respect. So let's get into it. Let me tell you something that will save you a whole lot of time, energy, and heartbreak. Never, and I mean never, chase a man. I don't care how fine he is, how much potential you think he has, or how much you like him. The moment you start chasing a man, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. See, men are natural hunters. It's in their DNA. When a man really wants something, whether it's a job, success, or a woman, he goes after it. He pursues it. He puts in the effort. You will never have to guess if a man is interested, because a man who truly wants you will make that crystal clear. He will call, he will text, he will plan, and he will show up. But the second you start chasing him, texting him first all the time, making all the plans, rearranging your schedule to fit his, trying to force a relationship, you're flipping the script. Instead of being the prize, you become the pursuer. And let me tell you something about men. They do not value what comes too easy. It's just how they're wired. Think about it. Have you ever seen a man go crazy over something he got with no effort? No. Whether it's a car, a promotion, or a woman, the things a man values the most are the things he had to work for. That's why when you chase a man, he starts pulling away. It's not because he's busy. It's not because he's confused. It's because he doesn't feel like he earned you. And when a man doesn't feel like he earned you, he won't appreciate you. Now let's talk about the way women chase men without even realizing it. It's not just about physically running after him. It's in the little things. Sending that "hey stranger" text after he's been ghosting you, that's chasing. Always being the one to initiate conversations and making excuses for why he's not responding, that's chasing. Pretending to like the things he likes just so he'll notice you, chasing. Letting him treat you like an option while you keep trying to prove that you're the one, that's chasing too. Some women think, well, maybe he's just shy, or maybe he's not sure how I feel. No, ma'am. If a man wants you, he will make sure you know it. There is no confusion. A man who is interested will find a way. A man who is not will find an excuse. Period. Let me tell you something else. Chasing a man doesn't just make you look desperate. It makes him lose respect for you. When a man sees that he can give you the bare minimum and you're still showing up, still trying, still begging for his attention, he starts thinking, well, if she's willing to do all this for me, she'll probably accept anything. And that's when he starts pulling away, playing games, taking you for granted, and treating you like a convenience instead of a priority. And here's the worst part. When a woman chases a man, she starts making excuses for his. She starts accepting late replies, canceled plans, inconsistent effort, and all the signs that he's just not that into her. Instead of walking away, she convinces herself that if she just tries a little harder, if she just proves her worth, he'll wake up one day and realize what a great woman she is. Well, let me ask you this. Why are you trying to prove yourself to a man who isn't even showing you that he wants you? Why are you putting in all this effort for someone who isn't doing the same for you? Love is not a test, and a real man does not need convincing. The right man will see your value from the start, and he will act accordingly. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but Steve, what if I really like him? What if I feel like we have a connection? Listen, I hear you. I know how it feels to meet a man and think, wow, this could be something special. But let me tell you something. If that connection is real, it will be mutual. It will not require you to chase him down, remind him that you exist, or beg for his time. A man who truly wants to be with you will move mountains to make it happen. He will call, he will make plans, he will put in the effort. You won't have to wonder how he feels about you because he will show you. And if he's not doing those things, then the truth is he's just not that into you. And I know that's hard to hear, but it's better to accept it now than to waste years chasing someone who doesn't see your worth. And let's be real, when you chase a man, you're not just running after him, you're running away from yourself. You're neglecting your own happiness, your own standards, your own self-respect. You're putting your value in his hands, waiting for him to decide if you're worth it. But that's not how a queen moves. A queen does not chase. A queen attracts. A queen stands in her power and lets the right man come to her. So from this day forward, I need you to make a promise to yourself. No more chasing, no more convincing, no more proving. The right man won't need to be chased. He'll be right there, ready and willing to put in the work. Let me tell you something. Your standards are not just random preferences. They are a reflection of your self-worth, your values, and what you truly deserve in a relationship. But too often, women find themselves lowering their standards just to keep a man around. And let me tell you, every time you lower your standards for a man, you lose a little piece of yourself in the process. See, when a woman sets high standards, it's not about being difficult or expecting perfection. It's about knowing what she brings to the table and refusing to accept less than what she deserves. But somewhere along the way, society has convinced women that having standards is the reason they're single. That if they just relax a little, if they just stop being so picky, they'll finally find love. But the truth is, the moment you start making exceptions for the wrong men, you start setting yourself up for disappointment. Let's be real. When you first meet a man, you have a clear idea of what you want. You know how you want to be treated. You know what kind of effort you expect. But then what happens? You meet a guy who has some of the qualities you like, but not all of them. Maybe he's charming, but he's inconsistent. Maybe he's fun, but he doesn't communicate well. Maybe he shows interest, but only when it's convenient for him. And instead of walking away, you convince yourself that maybe it's not that big of a deal. Maybe if you just give him time, he'll step up. Maybe if you just prove your worth, he'll start treating you better. And before you know it, you're accepting the very things you once swore you never would. Now, let me ask you this. If you start letting things slide in the beginning, what makes you think it'll get better later? If he knows you'll accept last-minute plans now, why would he ever prioritize you later? If he knows he can disappear for days and you'll still pick up his calls, why would he change that behavior? If he knows he can disrespect you, men are observant. They notice what you allow and they adjust their behavior accordingly. A man will only rise to the level that you require. So if you're constantly lowering your standards just to keep him, don't be surprised when he stops putting in effort altogether. Because in his mind, you've already shown him that you'll accept less. And let's talk about why women do this. A lot of women lower their standards because they're afraid of being alone. They think, well, maybe this isn't exactly what I want, but at least I have someone. But let me tell you something. Being alone is not the worst thing. The worst thing is being in a relationship where you feel unappreciated, unheard, and unloved. The worst thing is waking up next to someone and still feeling lonely because deep down, you know this isn't the love you deserve. Other women lower their standards because they think they can change a man. They see his potential and believe that if they just love him enough, support him enough, and stay patient, he'll become the man they need him to be. But let me ask you, how many times has that worked? A man only changes when he wants to change. And if you have to lower your standards just to be with him, what makes you think he's ever going to raise his? Then there are the women who think, well, no relationship is perfect. Everybody has flaws, and yes, that's true. No one is perfect. But there's a difference between accepting imperfections and accepting mistreatment. There's a difference between understanding that no relationship is without challenges and allowing yourself to be in a relationship where you're constantly being let down, disrespected, or ignored. And here's another thing. When you lower your standards for a man, it doesn't just affect your relationship with him. It affects you. Every time you accept less than you deserve, you start doubting yourself. You start questioning whether you are asking for too much. You start losing confidence in your own worth. And once you start compromising in one area, it becomes easier to compromise in others. Maybe at first you only let the small things slide. Maybe he doesn't text back as quickly as he used to, but you tell yourself it's fine. Then he stops making the effort to plan dates, but you convince yourself that he's just busy. Then he stops showing appreciation altogether, and now you're the only one trying to make the relationship work. Before you know it, you're in a situation where you're doing all the giving and he's doing all the taking. So let's be clear. Having high standards does not mean you're asking for too much. It does not mean you're being unreasonable. It means you know your worth and you refuse to accept less than what you deserve. And let's be real. Any man who is intimidated by your standards is a man who was never going to meet them in the first place. The right man will see your standards, respect them, and rise to meet them. But you'll never find him if you keep lowering yourself for the wrong ones. Let me tell you something that will save you a whole lot of heartache. You cannot fix a man. You cannot mold him into what you want him to be. You cannot love him into his potential if he is broken, if he is immature, if he is emotionally unavailable. None of that is your responsibility to fix. See, women have this natural instinct to nurture, to heal, to take care of the people they love. And too often, that instinct gets them caught up in trying to fix a man who isn't even trying to fix himself. You see the red flags, but instead of walking away, you think, maybe if I just show him real love, he'll change. Maybe if I support him, he'll become better. Maybe if I'm patient, he'll grow into the man I know he can be. But let me tell you something, he won't. A man only changes when he decides to, not when you beg him, not when you wait for him, not when you suffer in silence, hoping he'll realize your worth. If he doesn't see the problem in his own actions, if he doesn't take accountability for his behavior, if he doesn't feel the need to grow on his own, then nothing you do will make a difference. And let's talk about the kind of men women try to fix. You know the ones. The emotionally unavailable man, the inconsistent man, the man with commitment issues, the man who says, I don't know what I want, but still expects you to stick around, the man who has potential, but refuses to put in the work. A lot of women fall for potential. They see a man for who he could be instead of who he actually is. Maybe he has big dreams, but no work ethic. Maybe he's been hurt in the past, so he shuts you out emotionally. Maybe he's got issues from childhood, and you think, if I just love him enough, I can heal him. But let me ask you something. Who's healing you? Who's taking care of you while you're busy fixing him? Because what happens when you take on the role of fixer in a relationship, you start making excuses for his behavior. You start lowering your standards. You start carrying the emotional weight of the relationship while he does the bare minimum. And after all that effort, after all that patience, after all that sacrifice, what usually happens? He still doesn't change. And now you're left exhausted, disappointed, and wondering why your love wasn't enough. But let me tell you something. Your love is not the problem. The problem is that you were trying to force growth on someone who wasn't ready for it. And let's be real. A lot of men get comfortable in this dynamic. Why? Because they get to have all the benefits of a relationship without putting in any of the work. They get your love, your support, your patience, your effort, but what are you getting in return? And here's the worst part. After you've spent months, maybe even years trying to fix him, trying to be everything he needs, do you know what happens? He finally decides to change, but for someone else. Now, all of a sudden, he's ready for a real commitment. Now he knows how to communicate. Now he's stepping up. And you're left sitting there wondering why he couldn't do all that for you. The truth? It's not that he couldn't. It's that he didn't want to. Because deep down, he knew you would tolerate his flaws, his excuses, his lack of effort. He knew you would stick around no matter what. But when he meets a woman who refuses to put up with that, he either steps up or gets left behind. And that's the difference. A woman who knows her worth doesn't try to fix a man. She chooses a man who doesn't need fixing. She doesn't waste her time on projects, potential, or promises that never turn into action. She finds a man who is already doing the work, already growing, already emotionally available. So the next time you meet a man and start thinking, well, maybe if I just help him, he'll be better, stop right there. A real man doesn't need to be helped into treating you right. He either steps up or he doesn't. But it is not your job to build a man from scratch. If he wants to grow, he'll do it on his own. And if he doesn't, that's his problem, not yours. Let me tell you something. When you enter a relationship, the one thing you should never do is lose yourself. Too many women get so caught up in love, in making a man happy, in trying to be the perfect partner, that they wake up one day and realize they don't even recognize themselves anymore. And let me tell you, that's one of the worst feelings in the world. See, when a relationship is new, it's exciting. You want to spend all your time with him. You want to make him happy. You want to build something special. And that's beautiful. But there is a difference between being in love and losing yourself in love. And too many women blur that line. It starts small. Maybe you stop hanging out with your friends as much because you'd rather be with him. Maybe you start skipping your usual routines, going to the gym, working on your goals, spending time on your hobbies because your focus is all on him. Maybe you change the way you dress, the way you talk, or even the things you believe in just to fit what you think he wants. And before you know it, your whole life revolves around this relationship. Your happiness depends on him. Your mood is controlled by how much attention he gives you. Your dreams take a backseat to whatever he has going on. You become his girlfriend first and yourself second. Now, don't get me wrong, relationships require compromise. They require effort. But they should never require you to give up your identity. A healthy relationship should add to your life, not replace it. The right man will love you for who you are, not for who you turn yourself into to please him. But too often, women make the mistake of thinking that if they just give more, if they just pour everything into the relationship, then it will work. They believe that if they love him enough, sacrifice enough, adjust enough, he'll see their worth and appreciate them more. But that's not how it works. The moment you lose yourself for a man, the dynamic shifts. The relationship stops being an equal partnership and starts becoming one-sided. And let me tell you something about men. When they see that you've made them the center of your world, they don't always appreciate it. Sometimes they take it for granted because now they don't have to put in as much effort. They know you're always available. They know you'll always be there no matter how they act. And that's when the respect starts to fade. And let's talk about another reason why women lose themselves in relationships. Fear. The fear of losing him. The fear that if they don't give their all, if they don't bend over backward, he'll leave. So they start making themselves smaller, quieter, more agreeable. They start accepting things they once swore they never would. They stop speaking up when they're unhappy because they don't want to cause problems. They tolerate behavior that they would never advise another woman to tolerate. And over time, that fear turns into resentment because deep down, you know you're sacrificing too much. You know you're giving more than you receiving. But by the time you realize it, you feel stuck. You think, I've invested so much time in this relationship, I don't even know who I am without him anymore. And that's why I'm telling you right now, do not let that happen. Do not wake up one day and realize you've lost yourself for a relationship that may or may not even last. Love should never require you to disappear. The right man will love you as you are, not for how much of yourself you can erase for him. You had a life before him. You had dreams before him. You had passions, goals, friendships, and ambitions before him. Do not put all of that on the shelf just because you're in a relationship. Because let me tell you something. If this relationship doesn't work out, and you've given up everything for him, what do you have left? A strong relationship is built between two whole people, not one person who gives everything while the other takes. You should still have your own identity, your own happiness, your own purpose outside of him. Because the truth is, the more you keep your sense of self, the more attractive and valuable you become to the right man. A woman who knows who she is, who has her own life, her own goals, that's a woman a man respects. So don't lose yourself. Don't dim your life for anyone, because the man who is truly meant for you, he won't require you to. A healthy relationship should complement your life, not consume it. Never sacrifice your identity, dreams, or happiness for the sake of keeping a man. The right man will love you for who you are, not for how much of yourself you give up. Stay true to yourself, always.